Viewer discretion is advised.
Rockies. One World Series blew that. The Blake Street Bombers could not hit away from the elevated air at Coors Field. What a joke. And my favorite story of all, Clint Barmas getting injured bringing in groceries from his car. And it was totally not from bringing in groceries from his car. Located on Blake Street in Denver, Coors Field used to be a place where balls would launch out of the yard faster than tourists going to a dispensary after landing at the Denver airport. That changed in 2002 when the humidor was installed, but that can't do anything about the elevation of the field, which allows balls to travel further. The park set records for home runs with 303 in 1999. What's that about more Denver games being on here? Well, this time the Rockies were the victims. The late Anthony Young actually won this game in relief, and he got 2 hits as a batter. Sammy Sosa, probably fresh off his first cycle of withdrawal, went 4 for 6 with a homer as the Cubs jumped on Brett Saberhagen from the start and never let up. A mascot C. Saint loves. Dinger is a dinosaur because allegedly a giant triceratops skull was found when they were building Coors Field. It was probably a giant rock, but someone in the marketing department took a couple bingers before they went into work that day and bam, we got a dinosaur named after home runs. Dinger is known for attempting to distract opposing pitchers by dancing. So we've seen enhancing the bat, enhancing players, but what about messing with the balls? And this isn't a Manscaped ad. In 2010, Hall of Fame announcer John Miller accused the Rockies of using different balls during clutch situations, which had a little bit of credence since they kept their ball fridge a secret for most of its first season in 2002. The use of the humidor marked a precipitous decline in hitting at Coors. However, when the Rockies started hitting dings again in 2010, the easiest thing to do was accuse them of cheating. But we all know the ball is juiced this year. Though it only served the MLB for 2 years, Mile High did draw a ridiculous amount of baseball spectators in 1993 and 1994. After serving the Broncos until 2001, it was demolished, where a tiny replica of the stadium now sits in the parking lot it was converted to. Special thanks to Brandon Perna, who is a tiny replica of a human being, for letting me know this information. This is just a gorgeous stadium and robust facility. They really went above and beyond. I love the architecture of the overlapping grandstand. Everything looks well thought out and aesthetically pleasing. It's also across the street from a mall, and the Talking Stick Casino/Resort is a short ride away, so you can go there and gamble away your money. I'm sure others will say that I got this one wrong, but hey, that's what happens when you rank them.
January 29th, 2021. A day that Colorado Rockies fans will hate for a long time to come.
Nolan Arenado's time as a Rocky, it's all but over as the Rockies have agreed to trade the All-Star third baseman to the St. Louis Cardinals tonight.
The face of the franchise, and one of the best players the organization has ever had, was traded for a mere pittance.
The relationship wasn't always peaches and cream, right? There were some bumps. Could I have done a better job in certain areas? You betcha.
Everyone would point fingers. Arenado and the fans would blame the team. Management and ownership would make a token gesture of blaming themselves.
There were many teams that we talked to, and there were many deals that made no sense. And to be quite honest, there were 10 times over the last 2 weeks where I didn't think the St. Louis deal made any sense.
It was a stunning development for a franchise that has long been hiding its true intentions. Dick Monfort became a faux philosopher, flagellating his own back in a press conference saying that he'd fire himself if he had the chance. He can say Jeff Bridich only needs about 6 more years to have his rudderless vision come to fruition, but the seedy reality has been brought to the light. They only care for the bottom line, and the Nolan Arenado trade proved it. Perhaps we should have been harsher on them in the past with their personnel trends. The Colorado Rockies are avaricious with their spending, but they are more insidious than the usual suspects. They don't go completely anemic, but spend just enough to ensure fans go through the turnstiles in an average game. They have little interest in building a true winner, They just want to give the impression of being competitive. The best analogy for them is a Fabergé egg. They are ornate and well decorated on the exterior. You see your Arenados, your Blackmans, your Marquezes, your Trevor Storys, and you say, wow, this is a good baseball team. But break through that perfect outside and there is nothing. Simply a hollow shell. The rest of the organization is run like a bare-bones operation. The team's drafting and player development is atrocious. Prospects drop like flies due to the waste and penny pinching of the organization. A good enough excuse to block them from the show in favor of the old, washed-up veteran or spend decent money on the name talent that has passed his prime in free agency to wild the plebs. Look at last year's group. What team that sees themselves as competitive gives regular at-bats to 35-year-old Matt Kemp? You may say it was only because he and Desmond opted out, but then they would have had him in center field where he shouldn't be. Their save leader last year was Daniel Bard. Great story coming back from a litany of setbacks, but as a team's best reliever? I get it, they threw a huge chunk of money at big-name relievers that all fell to shit. Things getting so bad that they cut them all last year and had to swallow the remainder of their contracts. The Rockies will always have to deal with being a pitcher's nightmare due to the elevation, humidor or not. It's a damning testament to Bridich. They're scared of making the same mistake, and that in itself is foolish. It's free agency, signings don't work out. It's an inevitability just like the draft pick busting or the managerial hire flopping. It's a repeat formula. They'll get these names that may not fit the team, but it'll generate fan interest and get people to the ballpark. The only way they can be relevant? If people play well over their heads. If Charlie Blackmon hits near 400. If Cal Freeland pitches like a Cy Young candidate. That's not sustainable. It never has been. If a player gets bad, fuck it, they don't want to pay him. David Dahl, great hitter who had a bad year, doesn't matter, he's gone. DJ LeMahieu, sorry, too rich for their blood, he's free to go. They'll just sign washed-up Daniel Murphy because name recognition. Having buyer's remorse over the big deal you signed Troy Tulowitzki to? No problem, just trade him elsewhere and bring in a name Brandon Jose Reyes that becomes a cancer and doesn't want to be in Denver. The same thing played out with Arenado. He saw through the whole smoke and mirror show that management put on. The contract extension he may have signed a year earlier was exorbitant, but he knew he wasn't going to see it through. Monfort didn't sign him for the long haul. He signed him to boost short-term fan interest in the team. There were already cracks showing long before the trade. Nolan apparently got pissed with the lack of executive vision and demanded a trade 9 months after signing the extension. With the loss of attendance due to COVID, the Rockies either couldn't or didn't want to pay him the remainder of his deal. It wasn't open conflict, but more of a Cold War. Management would quietly try to find a trade partner for Nolan, but there were no bites. The rift between Nolan and Bridich would widen as he felt disrespected by Jeff's actions. Those cracks would become open leaks through the year. Arenado would have a down year all around. His bat was underwhelming. He'd have outbursts in front of the cameras. He would end the season injured. But here's the moment when I knew things were dire.
I think for whatever reason, I don't know if it was, getting out of the ballpark, the feeling in the dugout before the game, the feeling, even eating lunch with these guys in the food room and during stretch and BP just felt different for whatever reason. I don't know if with Nolan, going on the IL, maybe the pressure off this team to perform, kind of disappeared a little bit. Everyone seemed to be in a really good mood today, but everyone just seemed really engaged, really energized, and it was just a different feeling.
He's too far gone. When the locker room atmosphere is significantly better once the franchise faces away, there's no way to repair it. Arenado was an opt-out in 2021, and there was a chance that he'd use it to get the hell out. The Rockies had no leverage. The team lost $174 million in 2020. Their key revenue stream was taken out and were caught with their pants down. Colorado couldn't win. So management, in the fashion they would take under this regime, chose the path most convenient for them. Shed payroll. Traded to the St. Louis Cardinals for a meager compensation. No top prospects, just a mishmash of long shots and guys who will be placeholders in the future. And to further twist the knife, the Rockies will be paying the Cardinals over $50 million to take them off their hands. It isn't just insulting to Rockies fans. It's insulting to the game of baseball itself. This is a total failure of Colorado and their executive branch. They have merely chosen to be comfortable with the status quo of retaining short-term profit instead of long-term gains. They were more worried about Arenado staying put and having to pay him what he was owed, ignoring the consequences of removing him. Getting rid of Arenado's big contract will help with payroll, but the windfall won't come in the form of fans. They've been broken, and I honestly don't know how you get them back after this. That $50 million they sent to St. Louis was more lucrative than any free agent contract they signed to a position player not named Ian Desmond. The same Ian Desmond that is played out of position to get asses in seats. Insidiously cheap. It's the Rocky Mountain way. Even then, there will be more to this tale. Trevor Story and John Gray are free agents at the end of the year. Charlie Blackmon has player options after this season. Ownership is still under the belief that they are competitive and asses will fill as many seats as COVID restrictions allow. This is only going to get uglier. They may have traded Arenado and countless millions for some craft beer and peanuts, but the Rockies traded far more than that. They traded their team's reputation. They traded any respect that the organization may have had. They traded the interest their fans had in the team. This wasn't just a terrible trade on the surface, this is franchise killing. This is the kind of deal that gets looked at like Ronnie Franchise getting traded to the Penguins. You know how Hartford felt after that deal happened? The same thing is happening here. Why should anyone sign a big contract with a team? Will they just be traded in a cheap attempt to save a few bucks in the short term? Who's coming to the ballpark? They can't rebuild since fans won't buy into it with the lack of player development. They can't sign players since fans will be skeptical that they stay and they don't have the money to do it. They can't stay in the middle since it's the worst fate a team can have in sports and fans still won't show up. Colorado's in deep shit, and it's their own damn fault for it. Maybe Monfort should fire himself. It may be the only way things have a chance of being repaired. He's only loyal to those that kiss his ass. And the pavement won't.
Here we go. High fly ball.